Today's episode is with Alon Mashkovich. Alon is a CEO and co-founder of a company named enSights.ai. And what they do is they aggregate information from a bunch of different places in mainly solar developments to give managers the ability to bring down the cost of operations and make these projects, renewable energy projects, more viable. He has a very interesting story with pivoting from the consulting sector to coming up with an idea, to validating the idea, getting the first customer, using that experience to iterate on the product, first hires, a lot of stuff, a lot of really useful things that we talk about as far as going from 0 to 1 to 2. Very interesting time in the company's life to be speaking with him. So I learned a lot from the episode. Thank you as always to partners Clean Tech Growth Lab. If you're looking to grow in clean tech, they're the people to do it with. And the producers of this podcast, Craze and Friends. And with that, I give you Alon. Oh, welcome to another episode of The Grove. A shout out to our sponsors mentioned just before this, but without them, it would not be possible to interview awesome people doing awesome things like Alon. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
That's right. So I'm very interested. I've done some research about enSights, what you guys are building. Very interesting to me, the scale at which you guys do business, like we were just talking about your travel schedule. But for anyone that doesn't know yet, if you give a brief introduction of yourself and what you're building.
Pleasure. So I'm leading enSights, and enSights is here in order to uncover and make sure that all the renewables that we are building around us are producing as much energy as they should and much beyond in order to power all this demand for electricity, energy, data centers, AI. And so we are the infrastructure that helps to really empower and make sure that this energy is available.
Is this your first company?
At this global scale, I would say yes. Before that, I've built a local consultancy firm focusing also on energy, mainly in our local market, which is still doing a great stuff and have shifted the focus and also producing and doing some products around energy tech. But enSights is really the one that we're scaling and working globally.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, before we get into the software that you've built and the passion that you have for energy, have you always known that you were going to start a company, or was there a point where you said, I want entrepreneurship, I want to do it?
So I think it was really in my blood. Um, I think many of the examples that I took is from my father, which eventually also from the days that I remember, he have been building his own path. And as a child, I remember myself also doing some entrepreneurship uh, stuff, like selling different things on the street, or going to our Burberry store on the street and suggesting him to do more advertising and putting flyers on people's homes. And then, yeah, I've done some stuff as a child. So I think it was really from the beginning is there.
Nice. So then at what point did you make the transition to energy?
Also a funny story that I remember that my grandpa have been running over the house every time that we have been leaving the lights on. So energy, I think, is also something that was close to my heart, but I've studied first degree at law, second degree MBA, majoring in finance. And even then, we wanted, me and my co-founder, to deal with energy. So I think the decision was made back then, 2008, maybe even earlier. But the actual real activities that we started to work around energy, it was 2015 that we left everything that I'm doing and focused only on this stuff.
Yeah, okay. So then if I believe what you had said is this enSights has been around 5 years now that you've been building it.
End of 21, correct.
So what happened between uh 2015 and 2021 that led you to believe that there was a place in the market for something like enSights?
Um, I've been working as strategic business strategic consultant in a company who have been focusing on cost reduction and helping our organizations become much more efficient. And usually, when I have been trying to choose my clients, my partners, and the project that I've took as a consultant, I've tried to identify the ones that have high energy expenses. Again, because it was kind of a passion. So working as a consultant, identifying different um, operations and helping businesses to be efficient. Focused on energy, started to be much more expert in this field, really to learn and understand
Mm,
what can be done better. I'm not an engineer, so I've been taking consultants from every specific area of experts, professionals, but what I think was important is to bridge the gap from identifying the opportunity for efficiency and also deploying and doing the stuff. And the bridge or the connection between the financial economic understanding, this is what brought me more and more into issues and identifying inefficiencies in this market, which led me and my co-founder Roy build our own consultancy and focusing specifically on renewables and energy efficiency. And while working with different type of customers, and many of them have large portfolios, complex assets, it was kind of inefficient, and it's still inefficient processes using CSVs, Excels, eventually everyone going back to Excel. And this was the point, I think, 2018, 19, that we saw so many things happening and so much opportunities and technology that going and adopt by different companies, all the digitalization journeys, and yet all of us came back to Excel. So this was the point where we try to see if there is an other way to manage all these complex portfolios, eventually bringing us to 21 and really establishing insights from our own real pains of ours and our customers that we have been working with for years.
amazing. That was very well done. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. So that I think that sets up a lot of really good context to put us in 2021 where you just landed. How would you describe what your product, what enSights was then? You know, the first month, the first few months that you decided to start a company and build it. How would you describe what the company was and what the product was that you were selling?
I think pretty around the same main anchors. Let's say usually I've started by asking or taking journey to the late 80s, 90s that have been so many computers out there, but there
Hmm.
was not one operating system that have been standardizing all these fragmentation across computers. So this is where our space was in and still in. There are so many OEMs, providers of renewable equipment, solar, storage, batteries. There is tons of fragmentation, and there is no standard that provides really a one simple way to aggregate, to manage, and be efficient. So then it was kind of a Windows into the world, the operating system that runs on all the computers. So enSights was built to be this operating system for the energy space, focusing on distributed assets. So it started mainly around solar. This is where we started with where was the real very big pain. I think back then we didn't imagine that the storage and the batteries will be evolving so fast and become so cost effective and also adopting from solar to storage so fast. So the number of assets that we support really increased, and also the understanding that back then it was dashboards, and today we see all the revolution of AI. So dashboards, it belongs to the past. And there is another way to engage by prompting, by talking with the assets in order to really optimize. So yes, there is the bit difference where we were, where we are going, but the core is still there, is to be, I learned it as a consultant, to kiss everything you do, keep it simple. So really keep it simple and provide the most efficient way to produce and manage energy assets.
So that's again, wow, look at this. Maybe you should run your own podcast. I mean, you're just leading right into all my questions. But before we get into the details about the acquisition of customers, how the different things went, what you just mentioned, how is enSights different now than it was when you started, as far as where you're going?
Great question. I think that we need to ask our partners, our team, the people, because I want to believe that the main principles are staying the same, because it's everything
Nice.
eventually around people that's supporting and building and enabling all these um, technology, let's say. So many things evolve, but I think the anchors should stay, because if the basics are fundamentally solid, so everything else is coming. So great question. I think that we are a bit more matured, but still, I want to believe, and this is one of the things that we trying to keep into our DNA, still be flexible and agile in order to operate fast and concise. So I think we can see the maturity of us, of the product, but still, I think the main anchors, we need to try to keep them and focus on that, because eventually it's all
Got it.
about what we're doing around it and the basics. Yeah.
Okay, so then you feel the core of your product is mostly the same as it was when you started.
It's not the same, the core, but the principles, or the guidelines that guides us,
Oh, I see. Okay.
are around the same standards: to be simple to operate, to be easy to deploy, to be fast to act, to be fast to identify. So tons of things have been evolved. I
Yeah.
think
Right.
there is endless, and especially with these days of AI that is so accessible, and things that you have been doing yesterday that took you tons of time now are much faster. So the product evolved, but the principles that allow everything to happen, I think,
Got
are
it. Got it.
around the same, because it's the core.
Okay. So at the very beginning, when you were just getting started, I mean, you had a good network of people in this industry from your consulting work. So, that could be where you started outreaching for business. But at the very beginning, how did you get your first customers, and how did that go?
Networking, learning from experts, understanding. Um, it's not about selling. It's really about trying to understand what are the real challenges that these people that you are trying to work with are facing, and hearing them, asking the right questions, establish the relationships, a lot of in-person work that eventually AI cannot replace.
Uh-huh.
Um, so really talking, listening, more listening, approaching to executives, but also to the actual users and operators, really in-person interactions.
Nice. So we had said that there were basic principles that stayed the same, which I think is awesome. Uh, but in the last 5 years, which is you know, as it happens, the product has evolved, a lot has changed. So from the perspective of understanding how companies grow, because 5 years is awesome. I mean, it's a
Huge.
really It's a
long.
great thing to be, operating for 5 years. It's a long time, in the in the entrepreneurship world. So, let's just start with one. If you have, um, one experience with a customer or a client, it could be one that, ended up not being the right fit or one that you're still working with, any way you wanna take it. But what's an experience with enSights, with a client that really impacted how you decided to continue growing the company or evolving the product after that?
This is a key principle because we are very customer centric. So I think every input that we get, we're really trying to dig into and understand what's behind it in order to be able to improve our offering. So, and I'm very, very, very sensitive to our partners and customers because it's really about relationships, and how you support them when they need you the most.
Mhm.
Even small feature requests, eventually, if you understand what stands behind it, it provides you a better understanding how the product should serve them. Um, but if take to an example, I think one of our very, very early customers had tons of issues that we thought and tried to solve them all. Eventually, we have identified the basics in order to start and really provide with what hurts them the most, and from there to evolve. So building a real roadmap together to understand how they will utilize it. And again, it was the early days, so they really had a huge impact on how we have progressed over the time. And also understand that there are even other use cases that we never thought about. And if we have not been listening to what they have to say, how they struggle, because today they are the operatings behind all the product. We provide the infrastructure, we provide the capabilities, but eventually our users working with the solution every day, every minute. So it's really listening and understanding and following this pattern. So it's not to become a project company that develops every feature, but really understand behind it, and by that provide with the solutions. And this is the KISS example around enSights and what we do, because today the solution provides lots of offerings, and yet it's simple to operate and to provide tons of solutions without the need even to develop another features, because it's so flexible and composable that are able to adjust to different use cases.
Oh, so that's something interesting that you said, which is, uh, you've evolved to be able to serve, other customer segments that you never thought you'd be able to service. Uh, what have you learned about where is enSights going? And what have you learned about, the energy sector in these different spaces after working with your clients?
Trust. I think trust is the key between people, and I think trust is also a key between um, trust. I think it's the basic fundamentals, because especially in in a legacy industry that was used for years um, to several technologies or certain technologies, the ability to showcase a new capabilities and yet build this trust is something that takes time, but is very important for the successful implementation on both sides of the uh, on both sides.
Yeah, so you said you started out servicing, distributed energy resources, say things like
Correct.
solar. Where else are you operating in now?
Solar still a huge market, and finally everyone is looking into improve their performance. So, and understanding that the data must to be real, good, and trustful. So, and it's the same as all these assets are evolving into integration with storage, batteries, which is a key in order to enable the flexible grid that we all talking about to support the increased consumption that coming because of different effects, and also the rise of the AI. And this also brings us to data centers, because many of the data centers are attached to renewable sources, especially batteries behind of the meter, and more use cases. So solar, key driver, storage, in, very impressive, and very fast, um, increased market demand, and also the data centers rush, because of all the AI is happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So how in the 5 years that you I mean, you spoke to a lot of these things, but in the 5 years that you've been working in solar, are there any other, ways that the market has developed that has made, enSights, because you guys are still around, that has made enSights more important? And what do you see that, solar developers are doing now, that is a misconception or inefficient relative to what enSights provide?
It's two complex questions.
Yeah.
Uh, so for the first one, I think the maturity of the market as well. In the past, everyone have been running and building more and more and more and more, and not looking at the performance. Now these assets needs to generate energy, and questions started to get asked by the board, by the investors, why these assets are underperforming. Okay, you say to me that this is because one, two, three. Provide me the report, how you fix it, how you improve it. So there is a huge revenue leak, because not many have been focusing on really performance of these assets, operations, maintenance, and today there is a more interest because of all the losses around it, and we are able to identify these losses very fast, even in the onboarding that can take click of a button and we can onboard dozens and hundreds of assets. And this is, I think, important thing that we are still here and we are here to stay in order to improve, and the attention is only rising. And the next, second question, the technology moved forward, and all these assets have connectivity capabilities. So in the past, all of them have been installing additional hardware pieces, what makes all these projects more expensive. The equipment today already have these connectivity capabilities. So there is another way to communicate with these assets and reduce the project costs, and to be agile on your operations, to be fast on your deployment. And I think the industry is still not seeing these new capabilities. And when it connects to cyber, all these assets are connected to the grid. No one talks about all these cyber issues by controlling all these assets. And most of these devices, no one talks about the threats behind it. So I think this is also not taking a lot into consideration. And there is another way to do these things and enable connectivity while keeping them secure.
Do you see the security aspect is very interesting. Do you see these the level of security, the connectivity, or the revenue models that you were speaking to? Are people still using Excel?
Yes, even, and you will never believe, but even the most technological companies in the world that are really controlling all this consumption, many of them also still depending on CSVs, sheets, and all these great tools. But I think we have much better tools today. But before that, we need to make sure that the data is structured, the data is correct, that you can
Yeah.
trust the data. And the data acquisition piece is very important in order to make all the other functionalities on top of that.
Oh, so this is something you had mentioned earlier. Where is enSights going? We covered the beginning of it. We covered the journey, how to get here. Where are you going?
And I think, as I started, to be the standard and then the new way how to run and operate energy business, because it can be very profitable, it can be very good to the environment, and it can be very efficient. And you need to deploy the right solutions out there that will enable you to operate these businesses in a good way, in an efficient way, in a simple way. And it is possible. Because we see tons of siloed solutions within these organizations, and we see the energy demand only growing, especially around AI, and we talked about data centers. So the need to know their energy and to manage it in a wise way in order to make sure that you still can support the grid and the demand and make sure that you utilize the maximum of your assets, enSights should be the standard and provide that.
Mm, nice. So with all the I got two more questions for you. One is with that as the direction, with that as what you're building towards to be the standard, what is the biggest hurdle in your way as it relates to customer acquisition or growth? We didn't even talk about the growth of your team. Managing people. That's something that you had mentioned that next episode we should get into. But what's the biggest hurdle in your opinion, and how is it also an opportunity?
I think as an emerging technology market, and when new players come to the market, there is a level of trust or understanding that there are other ways, and even it's not large brand, but it has a good reputation and can provide the value that it brings. So as a newcomer, it takes time. And bridging or shortening this time, this is something that takes time.
Yeah, yeah,
So um,
got it.
I think this is one point, especially in a market that was used to certain tools for years, decades. Um, so definitely growth, scale, and the ability to do things in a new way.
Well, so with that, Alon, what inspires you?
I will answer it in a different perspective. What helps me to go out of the bed every day in the morning?
Correct.
So I think it's my kids and family, and the understanding that we're really doing something that makes an impact for them. So I have three kids, and they're my life eventually. So family, and the ability to do something good, that will stay here for a long, long, long time.
That's right. Well, thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing. If anyone else is inspired to follow along or get in touch, what's the best way to do so? Website, LinkedIn.
I'm very accessible. LinkedIn is a great tool. Email, wherever it works. But I think today with all the connectivity, LinkedIn is the best way to get in touch.
Awesome. Well, thank you for telling your story. I'm excited about where you guys are going. The technology is very needed, very useful, and I look forward to the next one.
Thank you very much.